In today's news, residents reminded that spear gun fishing is strictly prohibited and population census postponed indefinitely.
Re-entry form are now available for BVI nationals. All this and so much more when 284 News returns.
We understand that you cannot come to the store and encourage you to stay at home. If you need assistance with bill payments, top-ups, or troubleshooting, we are here to help. Call us at 444-4444 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, or visit our website at www.cctbvi.com. Click Top Up here or My CCT for top-up or bill payments. Social distancing with CCT.
Welcome everybody. It's Tuesday, May 26, 2020. A terrific Tuesday to each and every one of you. I'm Ron Grant.
And I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes. We are back here again. Ron, here it is Tuesday, but a beautiful day here in the BVI.
Yes.
And we are ready to jump right into it.
All right, so much going on, but before we get into the meat of our newscast, the public is notified that scuba diving and spear fishing for marine animals such as turtles, wilks, conchs, lobsters, or any other marine species and products is prohibited. The Virgin Islands Fisheries Act 1997, Section 50, Number 1 states, and I quote, subject to Section 35, Number 2, no person shall use any spear gun, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, or scuba diving equipment, explosive, poison, or other substance for fishing in the fishery waters. Director of the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, Mr. Theodore E. James, while quoting Section 50, Number 2 of the Fisheries Act 1997, stated that if these items are found on a vessel, it will be presumed that persons intended to fish in the fishery waters unless contrary is proved. Regarding enforcement and legal proceedings, Mr. James indicated that according to Section 63A of the Act, a person who uses any spear gun, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, or scuba diving equipment, explosive, poison, or other substance in contravention of Section 50, Number 1, commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to fine not exceeding $15,000. The public is cautioned to respect and adhere to the Virgin Islands Fisheries Act 1997 and the Virgin Islands Fisheries Regulations 2003. The Department of Agriculture and Fisheries aims to ensure that food is safe, nutritional, sound, produced and harvested in an environmentally sustainable manner that builds resilience to internal and external shocks while contributing to economic growth, social well-being, and protection of the natural environment. Now, for more information on the specific closed seasons for specific fish, you can contact the Department of Agriculture. And now, topping our newscast today, in wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the 2020 Population and Housing Census, initially scheduled to take place in June 2020, has been postponed indefinitely. Director of the Central Statistics Office, Mr. Raymond Phillips, whom we sat down with a few months ago, Kyla, to cover all things Census 2020, has confirmed same, stating that he would have liked if it could be conducted before 2021, but the present state of affairs are unpredictable. Now, because of the severe nature and contagiousness of COVID-19, Director Phillips stated that conducting part of the census online may be considered as an option moving forward. However, online surveys do have flaws. He said, and I quote, internally we've had discussions as to how something like that would work, having it done either via mail or online. But again, we have not really discussed it in detail because it is just an idea at this point. Now, one of the major flaws associated with online surveys is the fact that some residents do not have access to an internet connection, and inaccurate data information is usually sometimes provided. As well, as we all know, a census is believed to be the most vital and inclusive record made available to the government of the Virgin Islands and reveals matters pertaining to various sections of the population and housing stock, which can then investigate. The population census are conducted every 10 years. Kyla, we would remember when we had Mr. Phillips in as one of our live guest for the census, and unfortunately it is going to be postponed indefinitely due to the circumstances, but different measures are being considered, so we wait to see what becomes of that.
Most definitely. Hopefully they'll be able to find innovative ways to carry forth this census.
Because it is very important.
Very, very important. But as we move on, now Ron, BVI nationals are eagerly waiting the day that they can touch the BVI soil once again. Persons have been waiting instructions from the government on next steps as it relates to processes before coming back home. Now, we remember when Honorable Julian Fraser advocated strongly for the repatriation of BVI nationals who were away from home. As of June 2nd, as this date draws near, the BVI government have made a link available for BVI nationals to register prior to their arrival into the territory. The BVI government explained that the re-entry of BVI nationals in the midst of COVID-19 will occur over several phases. And this is something that we've been hearing, Ron.
Yes.
All persons returning to the territory during the restricted border reopening phase will be required to quarantine in government facilities or alternative accommodations for at least 14 days. Any alternative accommodations will be subject to prior inspection and approval by the Ministry of Health and Social Development. Additionally, all returning persons will be subjected to a minimum of 2 tests, one of which will be done within 24 hours of re-entry into the territory. Persons who are gearing up to return home can find the re-entry form at bvitravel.vg. And I'll repeat that, bvitravel.vg. Ron, a lot of persons have been awaiting this this process and this
Yes,
information, as persons are just gearing up to return home. The registration process will take up to 7 days to receive travel authorization once immigration status is verified and quarantine checks are completed. Persons considering home quarantine must demonstrate that they can be safely separate from others in the house and have a separate bathroom facility. No visitors will be permitted during the 14-day period. Persons who wish to have their homes or other properties inspected for the purpose of accommodating persons who are expected to return home as a part of their 14-day mandatory quarantine requirement are invited to call the government's Customer Service Care Center at 284-494-3701. That is 284-494-3701, and provide details of the property. Persons are to call Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And they can also email bvireentry@gov.vg. That email is bvireentry@gov.vg. Confirmation of reentry registration is with the understanding that the returning national would adhere to all the conditions established for the quarantine and restricted border reopening process, which is very important, Ron. I think this is a very important just details, because persons really and truly are ready to come back home. But of course, we have to make sure that the populace here is kept safe. So we need persons to really and truly to adhere to these rules, and we definitely welcome them back.
Of course, and in welcoming back, one of the things that's very important to understand about this story, Kyla, and I wish other persons would as well, is that we've done so well as a territory protecting ourselves and our residents. However, the meat of the matter really begins once we seek to reintegrate persons coming back in, and that is where our test of resiliency is really going to be proven.
Most definitely.
And I think it's important that we take this very seriously, particularly the persons wishing to come back home.
Most definitely. But Ron, still ahead, the government of St. Martin, they are actually facing similar woes as their nationals return home. So viewers, stick with us, because 284 News will be right back.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, as I was saying before the break, now on the island of St. Martin, the government is facing similar woes as their nationals make their way back to the St. Martin shores. Now, according to reports by the St. Martin's Daily News, residents who want to return to the country might have to incur the cost involved in staying in government's quarantine facilities for the mandatory 14-day quarantine period. The news site said this is because of the government's precocious financial situation. Apparently, the facility is a hotel that authorities negotiated lower rates for to be used to quarantine residents. Prime Minister of St. Martin, Sylvia Jacobs, said government simply cannot sustain this cost. She said the reality of the matter is that government is unable to afford it at this moment. Jacobs said in explaining the reasons for the decision of deferring the cost to residents who want to return home. She further explained initial protocols included 2 weeks of quarantining at a facility designated by the government. This is the only way we can have 100% conclude that they cannot leave the location based on them voluntarily agreeing to this. But the cost of said quarantining is something that we simply cannot sustain. At the moment, we are looking into, as part of that voluntary agreeing to be in quarantine, that persons will also be able to pay for the stay in this facility so that our population will be protected. Jacobs said, noting that if authorities fail to ensure that returning residents are properly quarantined, then the health of the population is being put at risk. And Ron, we were just speaking about this
Indeed.
in our prior story. Now, when asked about the rates to stay in the facility, Jacobs said while she is not aware of the exact cost, authorities had looked at more than one facility and tried to find the best prices. At least one facility that we had reserved was about $70 per day. That was the price, and I believe still have to make arrangements for food, etc. Now, Ron, this price and this cost could quickly add up for the residents over in St. Martin.
Of course. However, Kyla, I think it's a very different and holistic and honest approach.
Very.
The Prime Minister of St. Martin honestly is saying, we can't afford it, but we're making provisions. So I think that this approach is a holistic one and honest, and it really shows the magnitude of financial strain that COVID-19 has placed, so much so that while they're trying to accommodate their residents coming back, they're very honest in saying we cannot afford to carry that bulk. So I think that it's an interesting and different approach, and we wish our brothers and sisters in St. Martin the very best.
Most definitely, Ron. But here we see persons and residents being put at additional costs. I'm not sure if home quarantining is actually a fact, but as you said, it's just it's really, really honest based on where that territory is at. St. Martin, the government is being truly honest that they simply cannot sustain this cost right now. So if you do want to come back to the shores of St. Martin, you will have to incur that cost.
And one of the very honest things that the Prime Minister also mentioned is that, in her opinion, this is the only way that they could securely, secure the persons who are planning to come back home so that they're not reintegrated into the community and put persons at risk. It's a very valid point. When you ask persons to self-quarantine at home, who's to tell that they're actually adhering to those laws? So putting them all in an enclosed environment where security would be, of course, mandated, I think this is also a very interesting approach.
And I think what we see here is that everyone is not going to be happy about the choices that the St. Martin government is imposing on them, but they're doing it for the best of the whole population. And I think that's something that all governments are doing and trying to do during this time. You simply cannot be anyone's friend.
Indeed, and now on the local scene right here in the beautiful British Virgin Islands, Nagico Insurance has provided a financial grant to the Youth Empowerment Project, also known as YEP, which will ensure that programs are delivered to over 180 youth in the Virgin Islands. A contribution of $5,000 was presented by Stacey Roberts, Nagico's Assistant Manager for Sales and Retention, to Mr. Stacey Mathar, YEP's director. Roberts in a statement said, and I quote, "We commend the outstanding work YEP continues to contribute to the development of the youth in the territory, an area that is also dear to Nagico. When the request for assistance was received, we had to say yes to YEP because of the consistent and organized approach for their programs that get results." She also encouraged other businesses to follow in the footsteps of Nagico and other community partners who are supporting YEP's mission. The expansion of YEP's full-time programming staff in 2019 has resulted in the marked increase in budget. Hence, YEP sought community partners to help close a gap in operational funding, which has become even more crucial given the need to incorporate more technology into programs due to, of course, COVID-19 restrictions. The grant will enable YEP to deliver daily after-school programs to over 130 children and support the delivery of our full-day summer, Easter, and Christmas programs to over 180 children. Director of the Youth Empowerment Center, Mr. Stacey Mathar, MBE, said, and I quote, "YEP is grateful to Nagico for their contribution, which ensures that we can continue our work with the youth in the territory." He added by saying, "During this time of uncertainty, we have adjusted our programs to be delivered to our YEPies, children, virtually for an unforeseen length of time. This financial contribution aids us in maintaining this experience and keeping our physical and virtual doors open. For most of the past 15 years, YEP has provided programming needs for an after-school program now serving 130 children. After the 2017 hurricanes, when children were out of school and on shift system, YEP took an additional temporary staff to assist with providing for out-of-school children throughout the day. When school returned to normalcy in the late 2018, YEP retained 3 full-time employees and 2 part-time staff along with a director of administration to assist in day-to-day activities and maintaining management of YEP. This has provided us with a pathway into the future of youth development in the territory of the Virgin Islands. These 5 persons are currently undergoing training to complete a Bachelor of Science in Youth Development work through the UWI BVI Open Campus, that's the University of the West Indies. They would become the first cohort of persons to complete training as youth development professionals. YEP stands alone as one of the few free, not-for-profit youth programs targeting 8 to 15 age of range. A very worthy and notable contribution by Nagico as we all progress in the youth development, and we're happy to see that YEP, they continue to do really, really amazing things.
Most definitely.
And still ahead, Shaggy pushes for U.S. visas for a bounty killer and Beanie Man, and you can't miss this story. It's a pretty interesting one. All this and more after a word from our sponsors.
In the final analysis, we have 2 options. Stay inside and create memories that will last forever, or go outside and say goodbye to those memories. We're not stuck inside, we're safer inside. The time is now to unite, embrace, and love each other from a distance. Show the world and the people in it just how much they mean to you by keeping your distance. It may be difficult, but necessary. Let's reintroduce humanity and heart to all homes. While we can't enjoy the sun, sand, and sea, let's take this time to remember why we are nature's little secrets. Stay inside, and when it's over, we would all be better, stronger, and we would all still be together. With self-discipline and patience, we can overcome. We are, have been, and will always be VI Strong. A message from your team at 284 Media.
Viewers, welcome back. You're watching 284 News. On the regional scene, the Gleaner has reported that on the heels of last week's titanic clash between dancehall artist Beanie Man and the one and only bounty killer that captured the attention of international fans, media outlets, and industry players, there is a push for the two to be reissued with United States visas to promote Jamaican music and culture. The self-styled king of dancehall and the warlord himself were featured on the Versa's Instagram platform, being promoted by producers Swiss Beats and Timberland. The performance of the two racked up more than over 500,000 views, although the counter did not factor in restreaming on other platforms. International reggae artist Shaggy, whose given name is Orville Burrell, said, and I quote, "This was a boost to our spirits, our tourism, our economy, our music, and most importantly, our brand, Jamaica." Shaggy has called on Prime Minister Andrew Holness to lobby for the two to be reissued visas and work permits. He said, and I quote, "It's about time we rally the powers that be to free up these artists, allow them traveling visas and work permits so they can travel freely to promote our culture and represent our brand. I am calling on the Jamaican government, the U.S. Ambassador, the United States Embassy to at least start having a dialogue where this is concerned," Shaggy said in a post on Instagram yesterday. He also urged Olivia Grange, Jamaica's culture minister, to intervene by saying, "The culture needs it, the music needs it, the economy needs it, the country needs it, and the fans need it," pleaded Shaggy. Bounty Killer, whose lyrics are often laced with depictions of gun violence and murder, had his U.S. visa canceled in 2010. At that time, an email advisory was sent to airlines not to board the artist, as well as 3 other DJs, as their visas were being revoked. The United States Embassy in Kingston has not said why this visa was revoked. Beanie Man has also had his visa revoked. Several other dancehall acts are without a U.S. visa, among the very popular Popcorn and Tommy Lee Sparta. Now, Kyla, the event, the Instagram Varzos by the one and only Timberland, as well as producer Swiss Beats, has been really doing really remarkable things, providing a lot of entertainment and fun and wholesome competition between artists. So we see where Jamaican artists have been able to perform, and now because of that, their colleague Shaggy is saying, hey, let's give them their visas back.
Most definitely. As you said, this production, Versus, I think it's by the name, it's really clean fun. Persons all over the world have logged in just to see their favorite artists bring back some of the best tunes. Even before this clash, there was one with Ludacris and Nelly.
Yes, indeed.
So those 90s babies definitely had a great time. But I definitely love this. But I also love that a reggae artist from the Caribbean is able to show, yes, all that awesomeness from the Caribbean. Such an awesome story, and I completely agree with Shaggy, if I could say so myself. But before we go on, Ron, I think we should take a quick commercial break, and 284 News will be right back.
Everyone looks to the future, but no one truly knows what the future holds.
The number of people under the age of 20 with type 2 diabetes could increase by 49% by 2050. Let it be known that we all have a 30% chance of developing hypertension.
Globally, more than 300 million people of all ages suffer from depression.
More than 60,000 young adults aged 20 to 39 are diagnosed with cancer each year.
Obesity leads to problems such as stroke, heart disease, and kidney failure.
No matter your race, age, or color, we are all at risk.
These diseases can be managed or prevented if caught early.
But with the right medicine and the right doctors to keep us on a path to live a robust and healthy life,
we will live well.
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, as we round up this newscast, we have this story out of the United Kingdom. Now, the revelation that Dominic Cummings, the UK Prime Minister's chief advisor, traveled to Durham during the lockdown has touched a nerve with millions of people who have stuck rigidly to the government's rules. Now, let me explain why. Now, on March 23rd, the Prime Minister of the UK gave a stay-at-home order to the UK public. Residents were warned not to meet with friends or family members they do not live with. Persons were told if they have symptoms to self isolate. A few days later, the Prime Minister and several persons, I think we remember that, Warren, when the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and several persons within the administration either caught the virus or showed symptoms of the virus. Now, Downing Street reported that Mr. Dominic Cummings, which we just showed on the screen, was actually home isolating because, of course, he may have been exposed to the virus as one of the Prime Minister's close contacts. Well, apparently, Cummings actually traveled from London to Durham via car to stay with his parents. This is about a 260-mile drive. This breaks all the government's rules and goes against the government's strict instructions. Mr. Cummings defended his actions as doing the right thing. At the time, his wife was showing symptoms of the virus, and just in case he also developed symptoms, they needed to ensure that their son had proper childcare. That was his reasoning behind traveling to his parents' house during the stay-at-home order. Although this has stirred up quite the controversy, Prime Minister Boris Johnson stands in solidarity with his chief advisor. So let's take a look at what he had to say about this situation.
To begin by answering the big question that people have been asking in the last 48 hours, and that is this government asking you, the people, the public, to do one thing, while senior people here in government do something else? Have we been asking you to make sacrifices to obey social distancing, stay at home, while some people have been basically flouting those rules and endangering lives? And it's because I take this matter so seriously, and frankly, it is so serious, that I can tell you today I've had extensive face-to-face conversations with Dominic Cummings, and I've concluded that in travelling to find the right kind of childcare, at the moment when both he and his wife were about to be incapacitated by coronavirus, and when he had no alternative, I think he followed the instincts of every father and every parent, and I do not mark him down for that. And though there have been many other allegations about what happened when he was in self-isolation and thereafter, some of them palpably false, I believe that in every respect he has acted responsibly and legally and with integrity, and with the overwhelming aim of stopping the spread of the virus and saving lives.
Yes, viewers, Prime Minister Johnson stood in solidarity with Mr. Cummings, basically defending his actions, but many persons have strongly disagreed with this course of action. Just today, the Scotland Office Minister Douglas Ross, he resigned from office after this revelation. He said, "I have constituents who didn't get to say goodbye to loved ones, families who could not mourn together, people who didn't visit sick relatives because they followed the guidance of the government. I cannot in good faith tell them that they were wrong, and one senior advisor to the government was right." Now, Ron, this is a big story coming out of the UK. Residents are outraged. Members of parliament are even asking for Mr. Cummings to resign or to be fired.
Wow, Kyla, I can understand both scenarios. One wanting to be a really good father, seemingly, and protect his child, as well as others basically saying, listen, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I think that that's where the problem is coming. So we'll follow this story to see what's happening.
Most definitely. I think the fact that Mr. Cummings, he was not apologetic. He was mostly defending his actions. And this is someone that had a hand in basically molding the stay-at-home order and some of the protocols that were placed, and the fact that the prime minister was actually defending, I think that's what really enraged persons. As you said, what goes for the goose should go for the gander. It doesn't matter who you sit next to or what your position is in government. It should
Indeed.
also go for you. But to actually ask someone to resign from their post for something,
that's an interesting.
I think that's what's a bit absurd to me. But it was definitely an interesting story to follow.
Now, as we conclude today's newscast, we must remind you, according to the Antigua and Barbuda Meteorological Services, a tropical wave will move across the area today, Tuesday, May 26th, into tomorrow, Wednesday, May 27th, and at most, a moderate chance of showers is anticipated, mainly for the Leeward Islands. The Virgin Islands is expected to see an increase in shower activity tomorrow, Wednesday, May 27th, and on Thursday, May 28th, resulting from a surface trough moving in from the west. For the rest of the period, high pressure will be the dominant weather feature with generally settled weather expected. Kyla, I know this comes as welcome news to many as we are in need of some serious rain here in the BVI, but unfortunately we'll just have to take it in the form of a tropical wave.
Most definitely. I think, Ron, I definitely want to wish persons just to stay dry. As you said, I think it's definitely welcome weather.
Yes.
But we definitely want to tell persons to stay dry. But viewers, that is it for today's news roundup. Be sure to follow us for daily news updates at 284media.com and like us on Facebook at 284media and 284BVI on Instagram as well as Twitter. I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
And I'm Ron Grant. We'll see you again tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and of course international content. We're 284 News, your source for honest and impartial news right here on 284 Media. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Bye-bye.